Hello, my name is Ruben Sloric, and this is my evaluative piece on the main production of my FMP short film. There are two main parts to my main production that was split into video and audio. For video, I used three main actors, and for the audio, I used myself to go around and record everything, and as well as use two actors for any sort of voice acting and voice lines. So for this, I used both a Zoom recorder and my phone. I used a Zoom recorder where I could, but sometimes I found it more beneficial and more convenient to just use my smartphone, which I'm recording on right now. Overall, I don't think the production went as intended. It was nothing short of a nightmare, really, for video. However, audio went much better. It was much more collected and it went much smoother. So I think there's a lot to evaluate there and a lot to talk about and a lot I learned from in this entire process. However, I am still glad that despite of all the production issues we found in the video side of things, we still managed to end with some really high quality and high standard shots that I am fairly proud of, and I think presents some good skills for the short film overall. I think this entire process has taught me a lot about how you need to plan around timescales, and when you're dealing with certain natural aspects like daylight and nighttime, and also dealing with lighting and understanding how long it's going to take you to set certain shots up and all that kind of thing. I think it has given me a more realistic perspective on how I should approach these things in the future and how I should better plan for these more rough timescales. And I think after this, I should be able to plan just a lot more in depth and have a more realistic idea of how long certain projects are going to take me in the future. So to start off, the video was supposed to be fully recorded in one day. We planned to do it in one evening, shoot everything, so from 5 o'clock till 10 o'clock. We planned to do the shots in Blakemere from 5:30 or so, and then get back to Hertford for about 7:30, 8-ish, where the other two actors would turn up and we would try and film everything. That did not happen. So on the first day, that being the 17th of May, we managed to shoot everything in Blakemere and on the Chester Road. So all those scenes were done and completed, and we managed to do a lot of the SFX, especially for Blakemere, on that day. More on that later. However, so when it came to the house shots, where I was instead dealing with just the one actor, that being Alice McCall, it took way longer than we thought. Now, because of the nature of shooting outside, lighting isn't that important. We did light subjects where needed. So when there was slight underexposure on the certain characters, we would hold studio lights above them to ensure that the shot looked presentable and exposure right. However, when we're shooting indoors, because we were creating a darker, more nighttime aspect, we did have to use a lot more lighting, and then a lot of the darkness would come in post. The lighting was more to ensure that the camera quality and the shots did look up to standard. However, in certain circumstances, this took way longer than expected and therefore dragged out how many shots we got done in the time frame we had. So we managed to get about a third of the way through the home shots, but by then it was about 10:30 and people had to get home and that kind of thing. So we called it a day and we revisited it later. On the second day, which was the 23rd of May, we managed to film roughly 90% of the house shots in that day. We managed to get both Alice and Rihanna's shots, basically all their shots together done. We got all of Rihanna's shots done. The only thing we didn't get done was the shots inside of the bedroom. Now, the reason for that is because that heavily relies on it being dark enough through the window to represent the nighttime. By the time it was dark enough, we just didn't have the time to shoot the final thing, and nothing happened there. As well as that, we did also miss out on a shot of the living room door opening when it's opened by the cat entering the living room, mainly due that it was just taking too long. I was trying to get the field of view right, but I couldn't get it done. We did get it done later though, which is perfect. So on the third of the 4 days, which was the 31st of May, we only took about 20 minutes. So me and Alice just came back to the house, sat down for 20 minutes and just finished the shots in the bedroom. With that, we also recorded her voice lines. Obviously, more on that in the audio section of this evaluation. But that went incredibly well. It was we just set up the cameras immediately and just got shooting. However, funnily enough, we actually shot that in the daytime, despite it being night. Now, the reason for this is because I shot the necessary shots of it being night in the bedroom at night. These shots, I just taped a bed sheet to the window and closed up the curtain and stuff to make the room look darker, and then lit it artificially. And it looked really convincing, it looked the same, so we got away with it, luckily. But yeah, so on the 4th day, which was the day after, we just had one shot left. This was the 1st of June, and the single shot was just of the cat entering through the living room. So we had to scoop up my pet from the other home I live at, and we had to bring him over, and we got the one shot in the second take. It was great. So we got that, and that was all the shooting finally done. What was supposed to be a 1 day, 1 evening shoot ended up being 4 days over 2 weeks. It was a nightmare, and it was incredibly stressful towards the end of the first and second day, trying to get as much as possible done. But we did get everything done, thank God. But it was a nightmare to get everything done, and it really taught me so much about how important it would be to planning and adding so much contingency dates to what you're doing, because you never know what's going to happen. Things may take longer than you expect, and you're dealing with so many time constraints, dealing with when actors are free, dealing with when the daylight hours are suitable, dealing with when all your equipment is charged and in check. So much had to align perfectly to get these 4 days together. And I think that's why it lasted over 2 weeks, is because so we had multiple circumstances where it wasn't dark enough in time, or that one of our actors just wasn't free. They were booked up or had something else to do, and that just was the reason behind a lot of these delays and a lot of these production stalls. However, the process itself taught me, I learned so much from this process, and I do feel a lot more confident going into later projects now that I have this much more intense and first-hand understanding of how terrible these production things can get. But overall, I am happy with some of the shots we ended up with. We ended up filming roughly 150 shots, maybe touching 160. Obviously that includes a lot of outtakes and things that went wrong, all that kind of thing. But I am glad we got everything done. That was great, and we do have some great looking shots in that, which I'm really proud of. So yeah. In the audio side of things, it was a lot better. I am not 100% sure how many days it took, mainly because I was just kind of doing it when and wherever, because I kind of had to rely on viewing the footage I had and then creating a list of all the sound effects I needed from that footage. So on the first day, obviously, we actually filmed everything in Blakemere. So we filmed all the shots and all that kind of thing, and then we went back and recorded all the footsteps and all of that in the same hour, using the Zoom recorder, that kind of thing. That was one of the few instances where we did that. The only other instance of that happening was in some of these shots inside the house that required voice lines being said, such as when Alice sees Rihanna and reacts and says, "Oh, what are you doing here?" all that kind of thing. We needed, obviously, live recording for that, so we hit record on the camera and set up a Zoom recorder behind Alice, and that records the whole thing, and it sounds just fine. Another instance is just the one line that Rihanna states while walking alongside of the road outside. Luckily, at the time of filming that one line, the road went fairly quiet, so it sounds just fine, which was something I was a bit worried about when heading into post, but it was okay. Now, for the rest of the sound, I did record it externally. I would just basically just run around the house making sounds, recording on Zoom Recorder on my phone, depending on which was beneficial and suitable for the current timing or when I was recording. But no, I just run around making sounds, recording footsteps, opening doors, closing doors, flicking light switches, everything really. And I ended up recording roughly 20 or so different sounds, some of which just being general ambience. So I just stand in the middle of the house, just holding the Zoom recorder up, just recording. In other circumstances, I would just go outside and record record the sound of the road to work with those Chester Road shots. I also did end up finding and sourcing some external sound effects too. I made sure to make sure they are royalty free and copyright free, but some sounds were just less achievable, like the sound of the wind as it goes through the window in the bedroom, just not that achievable. On my own anyway. And I think other sounds like the click of the gun, and some of the creaking doors, a lot of those need to be added via different sources, because I just didn't have access to creating those kind of sounds on my own. Overall though, I think the audio went incredibly well, and I think it shows in post because I'm really happy with the audio design so far in the edit. And I think it's interesting because I decided the choice I made to not use any of the sound from the actual footage certainly applied a whole other layer of challenge, but also just improves the quality of the film by tenfold. It does just make it so much more engaging and so much more believable to watch, instead of just hearing this terrible DSLR mic playing all throughout. But I think also it taught me a lot about Foley artists and how their process takes and what kind of thing that takes out. But I think this kind of sound design is something I would do again in projects in the future. And I think having this first-hand experience of it after doing it in the experimentation certainly opened my eyes to this is something that is achievable for later projects and works so well. It's a lot of work, but it pays off, especially a lot of work in post. There is so much to it in post because you're just syncing everything and all that. But it is worth it in the end, and I think there's a lot to take from that personally for me. And I'm just glad it wasn't as difficult as it was to shoot on video. So yeah, it just went way better, and I just got it done in way less time frame because I was only working around with myself. That being said, with working around with others, I did also have actors. So I had Alice McCall again. Just recording her voice line of the voicemail, just say, sorry, I'm on the phone, all that kind of thing. But I did also get a media classmate student's help, Louis Hunt, who I got to record the Josh's voice lines. So that means Josh actually has two actors, the physical one played by Joshua Bulbeck, but also the voice lines recorded by Louis Hunt. The reason I chose Louis Hunt is because he has decided to take on a lot of podcast related projects in his media course, and from there I decided, well, he's probably more confident speaking on microphone, all that kind of thing. So I got him to film those more voice line based acting pieces. So he does the phone voice lines, all that kind of thing. But in conclusion, I think that the process overall has elevated a lot of my skills, especially in like lighting and cinematography. I think when I did the experimentation, the lighting and cinematography were serious weak points of mine. They were not things I was terribly confident in. I did feel that I had a lot of weaknesses in my ability to create a frame that looked visually appealing, but also told a story. And also the lighting in my experimentation looked awful, to be honest. And I think from how bad that looked, I think that taught me a lot about how I shouldn't be scared to brighten up a scene and then bring it down in post. And that's exactly what I did in this film, and it looked way better. It just looked more enhanced, it looked more collected, and some shots just look brilliant because of it. I think a lot of the mistakes I made as well in my planning and just how delayed a lot of the video came out to be, a lot of the production there, I think that also taught me a lot about managing my expectations and how long this stuff's going to take. And that's something I need for when I'm taking on later projects in this course. This kind of skill is just vital to understanding, how long things are going to take me, and also if I ever take on jobs in the actual industry, understanding my own timescales and my own workflow and presenting to clients or employers of how long a certain project is going to take me in a well estimated amount of time will be a vital skill. And I think it's really good that I've managed to have the mistakes I've made here to learn from them now. And despite all these mistakes I made, I did still manage to create a final product, which is seems like a stroke of luck in a way. I think I do still have a lot to develop and learn though in these areas, especially in my cinematography. I do feel that there are a fair few shots that are fairly weak in the short film. Now that doesn't mean I didn't record it and just say, yeah, okay, whatever. There were a lot of shots that I did take about 4-6 takes of. There was a particular shot that took about 10 takes with our actors, but there were some shots that were just really difficult, and I guess just weren't in my skill grade really. And I think also a lot of changes also had to be made to manage my expectations with certain shots. There's a particular one where it's supposed to be like a crab shot that went along the landing across the banister. However, I had to change it to a high angle shot across the banister because I couldn't fit the dolly inside of the landing, that sort of thing. But I think I still managed to recreate a lot of the shots I planned pretty well. And I think that in itself has developed a lot of my skills in cinematography. Just I have a lot further to go in making all my shots look good and making sure I deliver the most high quality product I can. Audio wise, I think there's still a fair bit to learn. I think maybe a lot more to learn in understanding layering ambience and layering different sounds and preparing more for ambience and stuff, because I think I did reuse a lot of things when it came to ambience and footsteps and that kind of thing. Not that it sounds bad with reusing it, but I think some audiences may notice it, and that could be a bit jarring for certain audiences. So I think preparing a bit more and understanding how many sounds I need and then recording a surplus of those sounds to put together would be beneficial for future projects really. But I think I learned a lot about how useful external sound is in these media projects, and it's something I will be using again. I think it's brilliant, so yeah. I am still very happy with the majority of my shots, and I think some standout ones look incredible. There's particular ones of up on the stairs, you see Alice's silhouette, or some of the close-up shots of the doors opening, and some of the shots of the ones with the lighter and the cigarette. I think those look pretty good. But yeah, this process overall has taught me a lot about planning and how important planning is, how much can go wrong. And I think it was just luck that I managed to get everything done within the timeframes of my actors. And and I'm very happy that I managed to get a final finished product. The quality of the product is all up to my audience, obviously, if they decide whether it is good. But I do feel that it does hold some value, hold some high standard in quality, but also a lot to learn from and a lot to take from this and adapt my skills to, and take the many mistakes I made from here and just fix them to learn and to adapt in later projects and figure out how I can better plan these larger scale productions in the future. Because with more planning, there's no way something like this would happen again. There's no way a one-day filming thing would turn into 4 days over 2 weeks. But yeah, so I learned a lot, did a lot, stressed a lot, but eventually we ended up with a product and some shots I'm fairly happy with, and I think I think the lessons I learned was more valuable than the shots I got. And I think the things I learned about sound effects as well, and sound design also taught me a lot and made me learn a lot, so that was great too. But yeah, that's all. Thank you.